Most men think they understand women. But if they did, they wouldn't keep repeating the same patterns that silently destroy attraction. They wouldn't keep chasing women who reward them with confusion. They wouldn't keep mistaking attention for desire. And they wouldn't keep losing power the moment they start to care. Here's a hard truth: most men don't actually interact with women, they interact with their own idea of who they want her to be. They try to impress a fantasy while missing what's really in front of them, a person who communicates through emotion, not explanation, through patterns, not promises. She doesn't tell you she's losing interest. She shows it in silence, in subtle distance, in unpredictable warmth that makes you fight to win her back. And every time you chase clarity instead of holding position, you reveal something she could never have seen otherwise. Weakness. By the end of this video, you'll know the psychological dynamics that most men will never see. You'll understand the real language women respond to, the currency that controls attraction, the hidden power that makes some men unforgettable and others invisible. If you want more videos that expose hidden power dynamics, subtle manipulation, and the psychology of emotional control, subscribe right now. Join the small percentage of people who understand what most never will. Because ignorance isn't innocence, it's vulnerability. Now, let's pull back the curtain. For most men, women are a mystery because men are trained to take words literally. When she says she's fine, he believes her. When she says she's busy, he waits patiently. When she says she's not ready for a relationship, he assumes it's bad timing. But words are only signals. They're meant to maintain emotional balance, not deliver truth. Women use words to manage perception, while they use behavior to reveal reality. The man who listens to words becomes confused, insecure, easily manipulated. The man who watches patterns sees everything. Because behavior tells the real story. Who initiates contact when you pull back? Who invests time when you stop chasing? Who shows consistency when you stop entertaining inconsistency? This shift seems small, but psychologically, it's massive. It moves you from reaction to observation, from need to awareness. And awareness is power. When you stop reacting to her words and start tracking her emotional patterns, she feels something rare: your center. It's the calm presence that tells her you're not easily moved. That while she might influence your emotions, she doesn't control them. And this is where attraction actually begins, because emotional stability is the highest form of strength. But most men never reach it. They get trapped in the next layer. Attraction doesn't stem from what you say. It comes from how you make someone feel. And the emotion women respond to most isn't excitement, it's tension. Tension is created through mystery, restraint, self-control. When a woman senses that you could give more, but you don't, her mind starts writing the story for you. She fills in the blanks with curiosity, imagination, obsession. That's why emotional unpredictability can make someone addictive. When attention isn't guaranteed, it consumes the mind. When validation is scarce, it becomes valuable. Men destroy this dynamic by dumping all their emotional cards on the table too soon. They text constantly. They explain their feelings. They reassure, over-communicate, resolve the tension before it ripens. And then, she gets bored. Not because she's cruel, but because the mind stops craving what's certain. Predictability kills emotional intensity. You don't create attraction by giving more. You create it by controlling access. By letting silence do what words can't. And that silence is what reveals you as powerful, not because you're playing games, but because you don't need constant validation to stay calm. But that's only the surface. Because tension alone doesn't sustain attraction, testing does. Women rarely test men with open confrontation. They test through inconsistency, through subtle shifts that ask one crucial question. Are you centered, or are you pretending? When she pulls back slightly, delays her responses, becomes colder, she's not always rejecting you. Sometimes, she's observing your reaction. Will you crumble under uncertainty? Will you chase harder, confuse her distance with disaster, lose composure? Your reaction determines whether she feels safe or superior. A man who reacts with panic tells her his emotions are fragile. A man who keeps calm tells her his foundation is unshakable. Psychologically, these subtle tests serve a hidden purpose. They reveal who leads emotionally. And leadership in attraction isn't about dominance, it's about stability. Women are hardwired to seek psychological safety, but paradoxically, they test for it through chaos. Failing these small emotional tests doesn't just make you less attractive, it erases trust. Because if you can't hold your ground in minor uncertainty, how could you be relied on during real pressure? The key is never to win the test. It's to stop playing unconsciously. Recognize the pattern. Maintain composure. Act from principle, not emotion. As you do, something shifts. You stop chasing her feelings and start governing your own. And this is where power begins to change sides. Before we go deeper, I want to ask you something to anchor these ideas. Have you ever noticed someone pull back just to see how you'd respond? Have you ever felt more drawn to someone after they withdrew their attention? Comment below. Think about that moment and what it revealed about who had control. Because understanding this dynamic leads directly into the next truth, one that silently decides who holds the emotional advantage. Attention is power. Always has been. In relationships, attention determines control. The person who gives less attention almost always has more influence. The person chasing attention becomes predictable, obedient, dependent. Here's how it plays out. A man meets a woman he desires. He feels a spark, a flood of dopamine, and begins giving his most valuable resource, attention, freely. Constant calls, texts, compliments, instant responses. At first, she's flattered. But gradually, she acclimates. The more easily she receives attention, the less it means. Emotionally, this creates imbalance. She feels abundance, he feels scarcity. She can withdraw her attention and watch him chase, he can't do the same without anxiety. And now, the frame is broken. What began as mutual curiosity becomes psychological dependency. He gave up the one thing that made him powerful, emotional restraint. Attention loses value when it becomes constant. What's scarce always feels important. That's why emotionally disciplined men, those who can delay response, maintain silence, protect their focus, radiate a kind of invisible dominance. They're not cold, they're selective. Their time means something. And scarcity builds value faster than any compliment ever could. That's why you must guard your attention like currency. Because in every human dynamic, whoever controls attention controls perception. But if attention is power, perception is control. And that leads us into the darker layer. Most men believe attraction is about impressing women. It's not. It's about perception management, the subtle cues that shape how she feels about your value. You convey status not through bragging, but through boundaries. You signal strength not by raising your voice, but by controlling when you speak. You demonstrate confidence not by explaining it, but by withholding explanation. In psychology, this is called implicit authority. It's power conveyed without demand. Presence rather than persuasion. A man who carries himself this way doesn't chase validation because his worth isn't on trial. His silence becomes magnetic. His boundaries create mystery. His calmness feels rare in a world addicted to chaos. But most men never embody this because they confuse aggression with strength. They think loudness equals confidence when it usually signals compensation. True confidence is quiet because it doesn't need an audience. When you understand this, you stop performing. You stop trying to convince, impress, or appease. You start existing from a state of internal authority. And paradoxically, that's when the world begins to chase your validation. But there's one more level to this, and this is where almost all men fail. They confuse genuine desire with temporary attention. Just because she flirts, laughs, and engages doesn't mean she's invested. Attention is easy. Desire is rare. You'll know the difference when effort appears. Desire moves toward you when you step back. Attention disappears the moment you stop feeding it. Many men can't handle that silence, they fill it with chasing that tells her exactly what she wanted to know, that his emotional state depends on her response. And once that dependency forms, the illusion of attraction collapses. The painful truth is that most men train women to lose interest in them by rewarding inconsistency with pursuit. By mistaking engagement for interest, they reinforce the power dynamic against themselves. The solution is brutal but freeing. Stop reacting to uncertainty as loss. Observe it as information. When her energy shifts, don't fill the silence. Study it. When her interest fades, don't plead. Step back. Behavior reveals truth. If she wants you, she'll make it known. If not, your composure will do more for your value than any argument ever could. And this principle extends beyond relationships, it governs all of human psychology. People respect what they can't fully control. They're drawn to what doesn't need their approval. They're intrigued by what remains calm when others would panic. And at the deepest level, this is what women respond to, a man who doesn't lose himself trying to keep someone else. Because that man radiates something powerful, an energy that says, I am whole, with or without you. And that energy cannot be faked. It's built through boundaries, through self-awareness, through having a direction in life bigger than any relationship. Purpose replaces need. Emotional control replaces reaction. Observation replaces overanalysis. By now you can probably see the pattern. Attraction isn't built through effort, it's sustained through mastery. Emotional mastery. Psychological mastery. Self-mastery. When you have these, you don't chase connection, you command respect. You stop begging for clarity because you realize something critical. When you control your emotional state, you already have the upper hand. Every withdrawal, every test, every inconsistency becomes a mirror showing you where you still lack control. Once you see it, you stop taking the test and start studying the system. And that's the shift most men never make. They keep asking, what does she want? When the better question is, what do I tolerate? Because the man who understands female psychology doesn't play to win approval. He plays to maintain alignment between his values, emotions, and actions. When you reach that level, you stop losing power in relationships because you no longer enter them as a beggar. You enter as an observer. A man of calm intensity. Emotionally sovereign. Unshakable. And that, ironically, is what women find most attractive, not the performance of power, but its true presence. Women are naturally drawn to the man who cannot be manipulated by beauty, emotion, or social pressure. Because he represents what they instinctively seek but rarely find, psychological safety through strength. Understand this, and you'll never need to manipulate anyone. You'll simply become the kind of man whose energy does the work for him. Remember this final truth: the man who controls his emotions controls the dynamic. Not through dominance. Not through detachment. But through discipline. Power isn't taken, it's surrendered by those who can't control their reactions. So stay calm. Stay grounded. Observe everything. Because the greatest advantage is not knowing more, it's needing less. If this video shifted something in you, share it. Someone you know is still playing blind in a game they don't understand. Subscribe for more content on dark psychology, emotional intelligence, and power dynamics. And watch the next video now. It reveals the silent tactics people use to gain emotional leverage in every relationship you've ever had. See you there.